welcome back to From the Bookshelf for another book club episode here in the final few episodes of City of Bones. Today we're going to be looking at chapters 20 and 21. Before we get started though, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you can get notified for any new episodes in the book club series, as well as my weekly downloads on Saturdays and anything new we got going on. So let's get started with chapter 20 in Rat's Alley. So we're going to start on page 273. There's a couple things on this page of note that I wanted to talk about. So Clary is getting mad at Hodge because she's saying, oh, Valentine is gonna go kill Jace. You just gave Jace over to be killed. And Hodge says he didn't say that. Hodge was at the desk now, opening a drawer, taking out a piece of paper. He drew a pen from his pocket, tapping it sharply against the edge of the desk to make the ink flow. So Claire's saying Jace is gonna be killed by Valentine. You just sent him off to be killed. And Hodge says, Valentine didn't say that. Like, you didn't hear him say he was gonna kill Valentine. And of course, Clary argues the point, being like, well, he said he's gonna be with his father. His father's dead. Hodge knows more than you. If he says he's not gonna get killed, like, you might not understand the situation. Like, Valentine literally didn't say he was gonna kill Jace. He just said he was gonna be his father. So because Clary assumes Michael Wayland, oh, he's dead, then that must mean Jace is gonna be dead. But the real thing is why? Why would Valentine be so interested in Michael Wayland's son just to kill him? That also seems kind of strange. But let's take a look at this part. So Hodge is he's doing something. He's writing a letter, right? So he laid the pen down, shaking his head. He looked tired. So then he folded the paper he'd been writing on into a neat square and tossed it into the fire, which flared up a bright acidic green before subsiding. So it doesn't say what Hodge is doing here, but I have a theory. So shadow hunters have fire messages, right? They're able to write messages, and with like runes and stuff like that, they're able to send these messages through fire to someone else, right? So that's what Hodge is doing here, right? He's sending a message. That we actually know. He wrote a message out. He put it in a fire, which turned a color that's unnatural, which means he's sending a fire message. That's what we're seeing. However, who is he sending a message to? Is he sending a message to the Clave? Is he telling them what's going on? Is he sending a message to who? I'll let you know who I think. I think because so unexpectedly, Alec is hurt, right? He isn't getting better through runes. The Arazi isn't working. He needs help. And Hodge, who we have just established in the previous episode, does actually care about the Lightwood children, is sending for help. We see later on in the book that Magnus Bane, High Warlock of Brooklyn, shows up at the Institute to help save Alec's life. So the question is, how did Magnus know to come and save Alec, that he was in trouble, that he was hurt? Isabel wouldn't have thought to go after him. Jace is already being taken away. Obviously it wasn't Clary. I think that's what this message was. Hodge was taking this fire message and sending it to Magnus Bane to come and help save Alec's life from the venom of this greater demon Abaddon. Alec would have died without Magnus's help. And I think through Magnus, it was Hodge that sent for him, that ultimately saved his life. Hodge Starkweather, someone looks at as a true villain, like evil. He betrayed these children. He did all these horrible things. He gave the cup to Valentine. But what we see here in this scene is that Hodge saved Alec's life when he didn't have to. He sent this fire message to Magnus Bane because he cared so much about this boy that he was not going to let him die. And that's who I truly believe he sent that fire message to. That's what I believe. And it's really the only explanation. Because if it wasn't Hodge, who else could have sent for Magnus Bane? There's really no other option except for Hodge. So, I mean, next time you think about Hodge and you consider who he is and who he was as a person, consider that. Consider that Alec would be dead if Hodge hadn't sent that fire message to Magnus. So, Hodge, a villain, or just a guy who's made bad decisions but isn't the villain? Redeemable? Quite possibly. All right, so we're gonna move on to page 274. There are two things I'd like to talk about. They're both connected. It's the first time we really see this corruption within the Clave, that the Clave's dealing with Shadowhunters may not be all that fair, or that they may be corrupt in doing things that aren't right for Shadowhunters as a whole. Hodge is talking to Clary about his curse, about what happened to him. He was a follower of the Circle of Valentine, but so was Jocelyn and Lightwood. So he's talking to them about this. So the Clave laid this curse on me because I aided Valentine, but I was hardly the only member of the Circle to serve him. Were the Lightwoods not as guilty as I was? Were the Waylands? Yet I was the only one cursed to live out my life without being able to set so much as a foot outdoors, not so much as a hand through the window. And we see this, that Hodge is punished in such a horrible way for something that so many others did and they weren't really punished for. Michael Wayland is just as guilty as Hodge. And yet, I mean, as far as the Clave was concerned, he was isolated to his home, his country home, out on Brosland Forest. Wasn't able to, he stayed there with his son, he didn't leave, but that was it. That was the extent of his punishment, is he was isolated to his home. The Lightwoods, who are just as guilty, were banished to New York, but were still able to come back to Alicante every now and again for huge special occasions. So we see that Hodge was the only one who was truly punished in this way. And why? How was that fair? That because he didn't have someone to go to bat for him, someone to defend him, he was punished more than anyone else. And I don't think that was fair. Let's start this section. We're reading a little bit extra on this one because there's a couple things that kind of run in together in it. So Clary is saying he'll kill Jace just like he killed Jace's father. Valentine, said Hodge, did not kill Jace's father. A sob broke free from Clary's chest. I don't believe you. All you do is tell lies. Everything you've ever said was a lie. Ah, he said. The moral absolution of the young, which allows for no concessions. Can't you see, Clary, that in my own way I'm trying to be a good man? She shook her head. It doesn't work that way. The good things you do not cancel out the bad ones. But, she bit her lip, if you told me where Valentine was. No, he breathed the word. It is said that the Nephilim are the children of men and angels. All of this angelic heritage has given to us is a longer distance to fall. He touched the invisible surface on the wall with his fingertips. You are not raised as one of us. You have no part of this life of scars and killing. You can still get away. Leave the Institute, Clary, as soon as you can. Leave and never come back. So a couple things here is the first, Hodge is saying that Valentine did not kill Jace's father. And in this is because he's saying that Valentine is Jace's father. So he couldn't have killed his father because he is Jace's father. But as we find out in City of Bones, not City of Bones, this is City of Bones, City of Glass, Valentine is not Jace's father. It's not Michael Wayland. It's not Valentine. It's someone else. And while Valentine did not directly kill him, he did kind of set up the circumstances for him to be killed. So, I don't know. He didn't technically kill Jace's father, but there's that. And this, Clary is basically saying, everything you say is a lie. How can I believe anything you say? Well, technically, Hodge has barely lied. You know, he hasn't told too many lies, except for the fact that he was working with Valentine, pretty much everything he's told her even, is the truth. He hasn't really lied to her. Like, if you really look at the things he says to them, he's basically telling the truth. And this idea that the good things don't cancel out the bad ones. And in the sense, that's true. Like, you can't really justify doing bad things because, oh, but I'm doing these good things now. It doesn't really justify the bad you've done. But if they've done bad, someone's done bad things in the past, but they've changed and they're no longer doing those things. And it's like, I guess obviously Hodge is just now doing those bad things as well, with Valentine giving me the cup and stuff like that. But those bad things don't automatically also cancel out the good things. It goes both ways. Like, if the good things don't mean that the bad things, you shouldn't be held accountable for them, that also doesn't mean that you can just overlook the good things. Like, as I talked about previously with the fire message, he's literally saved Alec's life. He is the only one who could have sent that message to Magnus Bane to save his life. But nobody ever talks about that. Why? Because it's never really told. No one ever says it. And it's like, Hodge is more than just his bad things. And I think that's what Clary is overlooking here in this statement. He's more than just the bad, he's also the good. By only looking at the bad, you're also overlooking the good. You're overlooking a whole part of him that isn't really fair to him as a character. Let's move on to the next thing. 384. So Clary is just finding out that Luke is a werewolf. Did my mother know? Know what? That you're a werewolf. Yes. She's known since it happened. Neither of you, of course, thought to mention this to me. It's like, why would they, Clary? Your mother literally taking you to a warlock to take away your sight so you don't remember things from the shadow world. Why would she tell you that Luke is a werewolf? That's just common sense. Like, I get it. It's like, there's this huge thing about you. I should have known. I'm supposedly like a daughter to you. But you didn't tell me you're a werewolf? Would you have believed him before any of this happened? No, you would have thought he was crazy. Clary. So, let's go to 385 on the next page. So, Clary says this to Luke. You know, it was bad enough when I thought you were another Shadowhunter and you turned your back on her because of some stupid Shadowhunter vow or something. But now I know you're just a slimy downworlder who didn't even care that all those years she treated you like a friend, like an equal. And this is how you paid her back. Listen to you, Luke said quietly. You sound like a Lightwood. She narrowed her eyes. Don't talk about Alec and Isabel like you know them. I meant their parents, whom I did know, very well in fact, when we were all Shadowhunters together. So, listening to this, like, I think it's unfair of Luke to attack Clary like this. Like, he's basically saying, oh, so now that I'm a downworlder, is just some horrible, slimy downworlder, you are so judgmental, Clary, sounding just like those Lightwoods. And rightly so, Clary defends Alec and Isabel. But Luke has done nothing but try to convince her he doesn't care about her, that he hates her, that he hates her mother. He wants nothing to do with her or her mother. And yet here he is getting offended by this comment. She's mad at him. She doesn't actually think downworlders are evil, downworlders are bad, or any of that. And we've never seen anything like that in anything she's done. She's mad at Luke. She's upset with Luke. Luke, who she feels like betrayed her, abandoned her and her mother when they needed him. She feels like he turned his back on her. So she's calling him out specifically. And he's like, oh, well, that's horrible of you. It's like, no, Luke, it's horrible of you. She's an upset 16-year-old girl. Of course she's going to get mad at you for treating her the way you did. This has nothing to do with you being a downworlder. It just has to do with you behaving the way you did. Like, he may have had a reason to behave the way he did, but Clary doesn't understand that. She was just teenager whose mother had been abducted, and she was thrown into this magical world of vampires and werewolves and shadow hunters, and she doesn't know what the hell's going on. Like, really, Luke? Get a little perspective. Like, this is about you and Clary and your relationship, period. Let's not make it about something else. Because I could say the same about you being judgmental towards shadow hunters, which you, frankly, once were. Let's move on to page 391. Okay, so we are now on chapter 21, The Werewolf's Tale. Chapter 21, The Werewolf's Tale. So on page 391, we have a couple things I'd like to talk about. So in this, we're kind of seeing Luke's story behind the circle, how it came to be, how he became a werewolf, and all of that, right? So he's talking about how Valentine was, that he was, you know, like this nice guy who was trying to do something to help the Shadowhunters, to keep Shadowhunters going, and to continue to live how Shadowhunters should be living. And then it says this, after Valentine's father is killed by werewolves, he was different in other ways. His kindness was now interspersed with flashes of rage that bordered on cruelty. I put this new behavior down to grief and tried harder than ever to please him. I never answered his anger with anger of my own. I felt only the sixth sense that I had disappointed him. So we kind of see that Valentine and his circle weren't necessarily the issue. The people that joined the circle initially joined Valentine's original idea of the circle, which was to strengthen Shadowhunters and to help keep the mandate to fight demons and to protect the downworld and to protect mundanes. That's what it was about. And then it changed. That's where the circle became the problem. And I think people at that point were too afraid to leave. So let's move down here. The circle still clamored for the mortal cup. But since the death of his father, Valentine had become an outspoken proponent of war against all downworlders, not just those who broke the accords. This world was for humans, he argued, not part demons. Demons could never be fully trusted. So we see, I think this is the moment that the circle and its ideals changed. It's no longer about protecting the innocent and only stopping like the rogue downworlders. It's about stopping all downworlders. His father was murdered by a downworlder and he's upset and it's changed him. And he now feels that all downworlders are evil. It was never about killing all downworlders before this moment. And I think we see that in the way he behaves. We see that his ideas have changed and he's no longer the Valentine that his friends joined for. But I think they continue to follow him because they're loyal to him. And I think some of them do truly believe in that, more some than others. And this is a little bit of a spoiler, but I think one of the people that followed him and believed in him most actually happens to be Maris Lightwood. She was one of his most staunchest supporters. And we see this more in some of the short story collections that talk a bit about the past. But that's an interesting fact, which maybe we'll talk about that more when we get to those particular short stories in some of our videos. But yeah, I don't think the circle was really so much the issue as that Valentine changed after his father died, and that became the issue with the circle and what it stood for. So we move to page 392 and we see this. This is Valentine with some werewolves. I went to him. He laughed, dismissing her fears as the jitters of woman carrying her first child. This is about Jocelyn. He invited me to hunt with him that night. We were still trying to clean out the nest of werewolves who had killed his father years before. We were Parabatai, a perfect hunting team of two, warriors who would die for each other. So when Valentine told me he would guard his back, I believed him. I didn't see the werewolf until it was on me. Okay, so I think I need to read the paragraph before that as well. So let me read that real quick and then we'll talk. So Jocelyn, who is Luke's best friend, even when they were kids, wants to talk to him about Valentine, her husband. What happened next was that Jocelyn became pregnant. The day she told me that, she also confessed that she had grown afraid of her husband. His behavior had turned weird, erratic. He would disappear into the cellars for nights at a time. Sometimes she would hear screams through the walls. And that's when we see the paragraph I read first, which follows that, when they go out to fight the werewolves and basically Luke gets attacked and turned into one. And I think this is the reason why Valentine sets up the situation that turned him into a werewolf. He literally wanted Luke out of the way. Jocelyn was telling Luke these stories about him, things that didn't look good, that were wrong for Shadowhunters to do. Like, he was dealing with demons and experimenting with the Mortal Cup, and you know, Luke kind of just brushed it off. Then, you know, he mentioned it to Valentine, his Parabatai, who, like, Alec and Jace are supposed to be like inseparable best friends, always there for each other. But here he is like, oh, Valentine's like, I can't let this get out. People can't know about this. So he sets it up for Luke to be killed by werewolves, right? But Luke doesn't die. He lives and he becomes a werewolf. Valentine literally set his Parabatai up to be killed by werewolves simply because he didn't want it getting out that he was experimenting with the Mortal Cup and doing who knows what with it, right? Like, if you keep reading, you find out kind of what he was doing, but it's like he was doing some pretty gnarly stuff. So that's why Luke became a werewolf, because Valentine didn't want his secrets getting out. So let's move to page 394. So in this, we see that prejudice isn't just the folly of Shadowhunters, that Downworlders are just as prejudiced and judgmental towards Shadowhunters as every Downworlder says about Shadowhunters. Like, they judge Shadowhunters just as much as Shadowhunters supposedly judge them, but nobody ever really talks about that like it's a bad thing. Like, everybody's always talking about, oh, those elitist Shadowhunters always talking down to us, but nobody talks about how judgmental they are. Like, look at this. So Jocelyn is going to find Luke after he's become a werewolf. She believes he's dead, but now she finds out that he's not. So it says this: in the end, she came to me. I was asleep in the camp when my second in command came to tell me that there was a young Shadowhunter woman waiting to see me. I knew immediately who it must be. I could see the disapproval in his eyes as I raced to meet her. They all knew I had once been a Shadowhunter, of course, but it was considered a shameful secret, never spoken of. Valentine would have laughed. A shameful secret. Oh, he used to be a Shadowhunter. How shameful. Like, so Downworlders are allowed to, like, judge Shadowhunters, are allowed to feel like they're superior in the sense that we're better because we're not these elitist jerks over here, but they're also acting like elitist jerks over here. Like, they're doing the exact same thing, but because they're not Shadowhunters, it's considered okay. Like, it's shameful that Luke was once a Shadowhunter, and it's shameful that he should be talking to Jocelyn because she is a Shadowhunter. Like, I don't know. I just think it's hypocritical to not say it's wrong for Downworlders to do it, but it's wrong for Shadowhunters to do it. Even if the Shadowhunters do take it to a further extreme because they have more, like, power and authority as Shadowhunters, but still, it's still wrong to judge someone for any reason. And we actually get a lot of that in the next book, which we will eventually get to. City of... What is it? I can't remember. City of Ashes. That's it. I know. I've read it like 5 times and I can't remember the name. Figures. Okay. Page 395. So the circle made a new plan, steeped in secrecy. They allied themselves with demons, the greatest enemies of Shadowhunters, in order to produce weapons that could be smuggled undetected into the great hall of the angels, where the accords would be signed. And with aid of a demon, Valentine stole the mortal cup. He left in its place the simile. It was months before the Clave realized the cup was missing, and by then it was too late. So we see that I think Valentine's uprising was destined to fail the second he allied himself with demons. I mean, demons are the true enemy of Shadowhunters and the human world, and yet here he is working with the demons to kill the Downworlders, to destroy the Downworld. And I think that's where we see he's destined to fail, because Shadowhunters aren't going to align themselves with Valentine because he's aligning himself with demons. So Shadowhunters always going to choose the side of right, or at least mostly. Some are just evil. But they're going to choose the side that's not demons, outright demons, because Downworlders, like vampires, werewolves, and the Seelie, they all have more than just demon blood. While they have some demon parts to them, they also have mortal parts or angelic parts in the case of the Seelie and the Unseelie, the She in general. And so we see that the Downworld has human parts, angelic parts, and it's just demons that are straight evil, yet Valentine is aligning himself with that straight evil to destroy Downworld. And I think that's why we see that he's destined to fail even from the start, because he's aligning himself with evil, and Shadowhunters as a whole are not going to follow that. They're going to fight against that because they know when it comes down to it that that's wrong. And so the last thing we're going to talk about in this section is on page 401. So Luke is talking about how he finally found Jocelyn again. She left, went to travel the world, and he had no idea where she was. And then he went to New York because, not really sure. So he went to New York because that's where the light was, as the exiled Shadowhunters from the Circle were. So he found himself back there. And he says he saw a painting in an art gallery. It was a study of a landscape I recognized immediately. The view from the windows of her family's manor house, the green lawn sweeping down to the line of trees that hid the road beyond. So he's walking down the street and just randomly sees in the window of some art gallery a painting of Alicante, or Idris as the country where her family's manor home was. So he sees this painting out of nowhere, just randomly choosing to go to New York, and just randomly choose, like, the statistical probability of him just randomly running into Jocelyn out of the whole wide world. I mean, Jocelyn has been in New York the entire time, but somehow he just randomly chooses to go to New York and then just randomly sees her painting in a window. I don't know, like, statistically that just seems improbable, but it wouldn't have been for a good story if you hadn't found her, right? Right. So that's it for today. So let me know what you thought. Don't forget to leave the comments down below on what you agree with, what you don't agree with. If I left anything out, let me know. We'll talk about it. And until next time.